Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because we're going to have an awesome discussion today about how can you really find a way by which, you're moving forward confidently in the right direction and continue to grow. And we're going to talk about grow and growth paths and many different pathways because we have Stephen A. White on the show with us, or Steve White. So let me tell you a little bit about Steve. Steve White started working as a young boy, helping his single mother clean motel rooms. He knew his mom was far more capable than the work she was doing, and he wondered what she and his 3 younger brothers could achieve if they had means and opportunity. That's when Steve developed an uncompromising mindset that would drive his attitude and effort, which resulted into remarkable success. Those early years taught Steve that an unwavering work ethic and commitment attracts opportunities that lead to an impactful life. His mother was living proof. If not for her fierce determination to provide for her 4 boys, Steve might never have observed or participated in life-defining moments that fueled his resolve. Today, Steve applies the same uncompromising will to keep his purpose front and center. That purpose is to create a table of prosperity that everyone can participate in and enjoy. Steve is president and special counsel to the CEO of Comcast Cable. He works with executives on a number of important initiatives, including leadership development, strategic planning, diversity, equality, inclusion, and digital equality. This esteemed role punctuates 11 years of service as president of Comcast's West Division. He led over 30,000 employees and served 12 million customers, driving annual revenue over $18 billion. As the division leader, Steve was driven by continuous learning, radical responsibility, and an enduring commitment to shared excellence and teamwork. This focus led to the delivery of industry-leading results while being the number 1 division in the export of talent to assist other parts of the Comcast enterprise. Before Comcast, Steve's achievements at Colgate-Palmolive were further confirmed that a commitment to his fight was working. His management roles at PepsiCo gave him the chance to shine in sales and management. He discovered his why at Baxter Travenol. While earning Rookie of the Year and advancing within the company's ranks were rewarding, it was the leadership qualities in a soon-to-be mentor that captured Steve's attention. He learned from his mentor and others who followed that working in corporate America requires not only collaboration and a shared purpose, but also the critical and emotional support of a servant leader. From that moment, Steve looked for ways to serve others, which resulted in remarkable outcomes and an ever-increasing attendance to his table. Steve is the author of Uncompromising: How an Unwavering Commitment to Your Why Leads to an Impactful Life and Lasting Legacy. And throughout Steve's career, he has enjoyed many affiliations, including his recent board service with Hormel Foods, Shaw Communications, and W.W. Granger. Steve is active in the academic arena at the University of Denver and serves on the board of New Leaders, which focuses on the leadership development of public school principals. He is a member of Delta Boule and the Executive Leadership Council. Steve holds a bachelor's degree from Indiana University, and he lives in Denver with his wife, Barbita, and son, Stevie. Steve White, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I'm ready, Jim. Sorry about that long bio, but you did an excellent job. I'm so happy to be here with you and your all your listeners.
Okay, well, so the Fast Leader Legion, I've had, people say, hey, man, why can't you just get to it? And I'm like, look, we all need to know our origin story because it actually really defines us in so many different ways. And your origin story is absolutely one of the strongest and is so vital into how that is woven into what we choose in our pathways. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But I think it's important to start in the book. You know, at the beginning of the book, you talk about your life being summed up into one word. What is that one word?
Exhaustion. And I don't want people to like disconnect, say, oh my gosh, this is going to be depression. no, exhaustion can be a good thing. And I talk about my life. One is climbing the corporate ladder. There were some lonely days and tough days, but it was well worth it. But also, as an African-American leader, there's a saying in the African-American community: when much is bestowed, much is expected in return, because there were so many people, Jim, that created a pathway for me. And so you have that responsibility as well. But then, like everything, you turn it into something that fuels you versus drags you down. And so that's very, very critical. And that's why that word exhaustion is so prominent in my life.
Well, and even when you say that and you explain it, it seems like never ending, right?
Yes, that's exactly.
Perpetual. I mean, you never quit.
But Jim, it talks about life is a journey, isn't it? I mean, there will be some days that are going to be good. There are going to be some days that are bad. The key is finding that balance. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. Keep that balance, because life is a journey. And if you live life long enough, you're going to experience every part of it. Well, and in the book, to me, you use the word resolve quite often. And it's like, okay, the complexity and the nuance and the art and the science and everything that's revolving around resolve and how to build that skill. And so I think it's important, we talk about origin story and the importance of that. Who was Lainey Mae White? Well, notice it's Lainey Mae. She's from the South, and everybody from the South, I think, has two names. So in my mother's case, it's Lainey Mae. I remember she often tells us the story. She gave her life to the Lord at 14. And then at 18, she walked down the same aisle to marry my dad, Linton White. And like most women at that time, her responsibility was at home taking care of the boys. And my dad worked at BF Goodrich and did all of that. But she clearly identified her purpose early on, Jim, was how do I raise 4 young boys so they turn into thriving young men that make a difference in this world. And so she made the difficult decision when I was 10 years old to leave my father. We lived in Florida and moved all the way to Indianapolis, where she had a brother. And that's where she started her life as a solo parent raising 4 boys. And so she's now 81, still living. She'll be 82 in October. But she taught us some very valuable lessons around teamwork, around effort and attitude and focus and managing your attitude. Don't let your environment shape your beliefs and the direction of your life. And so she was my first true mentor, because although I didn't understand all of her decisions, Jim, later in life, I tell her she gets smarter the older I get. And so now I can see so clearly as a parent now why she was making the decisions. So she is my first mentor and someone I still go to regularly for advice.
Okay, so here's something I want to kind of dig into a little bit, because I find it quite interesting. You talk about that you're in a motel room for most of your youth. You weren't out playing on the ball field and doing all these other things. I mean, your mother, hey, in order for us to support the family, it is a team sport, right?
That's exactly right.
And you had the opportunity to learn a lot of things. Of course, many of them at the time in the moment weren't very good, but that now you can look back upon and say, you know what, valuable life experiences. But here's the difference. And if you talk about generational wealth, so when you have familial wealth, if you look at the statistics, within 2 generations, that is lost, right? And it's because what ends up happening is, you know what, I went through that. I don't want my kids to go through that, right? And so then we protect them. We protect them from learning those experiences that really made the difference for us. So how do we prevent that from happening?
Well, it's an interesting question, because it is the thing I think about most for my young son, Stevie, because certainly he won't work in a motel room. My mother's first job, just to put a little context on that, Jim, for your listeners, my mother's first job, while she had a marriage license, she didn't even have a driver's license. So when we moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, she had to get a driver's license. She had to buy her first car. And the best job she could get was cleaning motel rooms. And Jim, this is motel with an M, not hotel with an H. There's no indoor spa, There's no in-room dining or any of that. It is as bare bones as you can get. And so on Saturday and Sunday, because she couldn't afford a babysitter when we weren't in school, we would go help her clean these motel rooms. And so to see my mom with a great attitude, because people did not leave these rooms perfectly clean, of course, but to see her attitude, her focus, her commitment to excellence, always greeting the guests with a smile, although her skill set to me were far beyond being a motel maid. That's what she did. And I learned those valuable lessons that we talked about. And so when I think about my son, here's how I think about leading him, because that's what we're doing. We're leading. Number one is role model the right behavior. So if there's such a thing as a benefit through COVID, we were working at home. So he would wake up in the morning, Jim, see me in my office, come home from school, get ready for bed, and still see me in the office on conference calls and working hard and managing my team. So number one is you role model. Number two is you make them earn it. So even today, he gets a small allowance of a couple dollars a day if he does A, B, C, D and manages his chores. So that's how he can go buy a game or Roblox or whatever. So that's the second thing is, one is you role model the behavior. Number two, you make them earn it. And number three, Jim, we talk about our family history quite a bit. So he knows that dad didn't have this. He knows dad struggled. He knows dad worked in a motel room. So we constantly share the family's history. And then whenever our families are together, we talk about that with him. So he understands that, Stevie, you got on third base, son, based on nothing you've done. Based on the fact that you were blessed with two great parents. Now your life will be defined. Can you get the home base and around and bring others along? Because no one was placed on this earth only for themselves. We were placed on this earth to make a difference and make an impact. And so that's how we do it. So we role model, we share stories, we make him earn what he gets. And so that's how we try to shape him, especially when he's around others that might not understand how blessed they are.
Well, here's the thing in what you just described right there. If you start looking at the workforce, you probably have an extremely large number of people who've never, ever had that. Never. And so yet we're expecting them to do work that is going to deliver in a customer experience that's going to build greater relationships and retention and things like that. If, we're not a straight up transactional business, right? But we're wanting them to do that. And then work and put forth that effort so that they're, getting the performance that we need to have for the organization to thrive. So now we're looking at that. Is it a situation, a scenario where we have to now start develop leaders so that they can do exactly what you're talking about with all of these different people who now report to them?
Yeah, a lot of leadership is instinctive, Jim. Yeah, I can teach you only so much, but doing the right thing, making the right call. Yes, you have to learn and grow. But here's how I think about it. The first thing is I demonstrate that I'm going to invest in you. And so one of the ways I do it with our team is you work for you Incorporated. So in my case, I am chairman and CEO of Steve White Incorporated. My wife, Barbita, and Stevie are shareholders. And so I try to tell my employees, you don't work for Comcast, you work for yourself. And Comcast purchases your services. So if you are trying to build a company, the first thing you're going to do is invest in your company to make sure it's strong and healthy. And I'm going to help you do that. So the first thing is, let's develop this mindset. We're going to help your company be stronger. And here are the things we believe it takes for your company to be stronger. So that's number one, is now we've got a joint buy-in that this is not about benefiting Comcast. It's about benefiting your company. Even if you decide to leave us in 5 years or 10 years, you developed a set of skills that you can go market in the open marketplace. So now we develop this mentality that we're in this together, we're partners, and we're here trying to benefit your company. Number two, Jim, this is really important, setting expectations. Although I grew up in the housing projects of Indianapolis, although I grew up with very little money, my mom's expectations for us never wavered. She expected us to be good boys. She expected us to go to school. She expected us to make good grades. She expected us to respect our teachers and our principals. So you set your expectations as an organization, because the level of quality always drops to the person at the bottom. Meaning that if I allow people to get away with murder, everyone's going to see that and start to want to get away with it. But if I set the expectation here, this is a minimum expectation, and then I honor that, even sometimes exiting people out of the business and role model that behavior, now I'm on my way. So I made an investment decision. I'm going to invest in your company. Number two, I'm going to set a set of expectations that's going to be clear what we expect. And then number three, I'm going to make sure you're rewarded in a positive way, whether it's recognition, whether it's more money. I'm going to make sure that you understand your company can be more profitable if you do these things. Now we have the basis, Jim, of a relationship, and then we move forward. And then number four, and finally, is I'm going to spend so much time with you on your development and your growth and your feedback. You should be able to write your annual review at the end of the year by yourself. Because you and I have had so much time together talking about the good, the bad, and the opportunity that you should be able to write your own review. And now you're constantly finding ways to get better. So that's how I try to think about it as we move forward. And none of us can manage 30,000 employees. So I have to really focus on my circle of influence. And then if I do it right, then they'll pay it forward with their team and on down the line.
Okay, so you hit on many different things here. And so the kind of let's just try to unpack this a little bit, but yet package it, if this makes sense. So finding our uncompromising why is really about developing skills. I mean, that's what we're talking about. You had experiences and all these other things and expectations, all that help to build those skills. So what are the skills that you feel we need to develop in order for us to have that uncompromising why?
Yeah. And this is you're going to say, well, wait a minute, Steve, are you sure? So number one, I love the Mark Twain quote, the two most important days in our life, Jim, the day we're born, number one, and number two, when we find out why. Because all of us have been placed on this earth with a set of skills. Some, like Michael Jordan, he just happens to be a great basketball player. I'm not. I love to play. And then you've got business leaders that have gone in to do some incredible things, Steve Jobs with Apple, et cetera, et cetera. So finding out what your skill is. So the first skill set is reflection. The reason people repeat the same mistakes over and over, Jim, they never take a time at the morning or in the evening to reflect on their day, talk about what's worked and what didn't work so they can get better going forward. So part of reflecting is, what am I passionate about? Number two, what am I good at? I'm really good at it. And number three, would I do it for free? Kind of what you and I are doing, Jim. You know, none of us are getting rich doing this. This is because we care. We believe we're good at it. We believe that we can make a difference. We're passionate about it, and we would essentially do it for free. And so reflecting on those three questions, now all of a sudden, you have the ability to really identify what you're good at, what you would do free. So number one is reflection. So anyone that does not start their day or end their day in some level of reflection, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes, doesn't matter. That is a critical skill to move forward. I call it self-awareness reflection. What's going on around me and how can I reflect? So I think everything starts there. Then number two is, how do I live my life as a learning lab? How do I constantly find ways? So once you identify your purpose, then how do you educate yourself and get better at it? For example, I try to read 12 books a year, and I try to pick a subject at the beginning of the year. Where are my gaps? Where are my knowledge gaps? How can I get better? And so then I lay out and research and find 10 or 12 books that I'm really excited about it. And Bill Gates said, if you read 12 books on any subject, you're going to be pretty darn close to being an expert, or at least in the top 3 to 5% of that given subject. So that's the second thing, is how do I educate myself? And then number three, how do I find people around me that are making deposits in my life? So they're affirming my dream, they're inspiring me to my dream, and they're helping me look around the corner and see what's really going on. And they're truth tellers that tell me if I'm on track, or if I'm not on track, or I'm falling behind, or I'm moving ahead. So I could go on and on, but those are three things that I believe, whatever your giving gift is, you've got to really focus on that reflection, educating yourself, and then surrounding yourself with people that are affirming and inspiring you toward your goals and your dreams.
And a few of those you mentioned are actually pathways that we're going to discuss in a second. And we'll get a little bit more detail on that because you talk about 7 pathways to get to the top the right way. And then we'll also talk about the top because I think there's a couple different perspectives that we need to look at in regards to that. But you talk about meaningful success requires, and in the book, you talk about 4 different things. It says fiercely independent, radically responsible, scrappy, and then having an undistracted mindset. And when I looked at those, I'm like, I think I've been fired for those reasons. So how do we turn it into something that becomes of value and leads to success instead of termination?
Well, you think about it, Jim, when you identify your purpose, you now have a criteria of what you're going to hold near and dear to your heart. There are some people, they want to fight on everything. They want to be uncompromising on everything. They never want to participate as a teammate. You can't live that way. But once you identify your purpose, that is what you're uncompromising. That is what you're ruthless about. That is what you're tough in your pursuit is. What's important to you? How do you serve your purpose? And that's how you move forward. I'll give you an example. My wife and I, our son Stevie came later in life. We always wanted kids, and it was just not working out for our benefit. And after trying a lot of things, it happened to us naturally. But let me give you an example of what my wife would do. We moved 11 times as a corporate leader. And every time we moved to a new place, my wife would find a door to a closet, to an extra bedroom or whatever. And she would put a pink and blue ribbon on the doorknob because she was visualizing her child in his or her nursery. So people might say, well, that's interesting, but that's uncompromising. You're never losing sight of your purpose, of your vision, and you're doing everything to put yourself in success. And even when doctor said, hey, I'm not sure this is going to happen, you had to go back, dust yourself off, and reaffirm your commitment to this purpose. And then it just happened naturally for us. So I know that's a personal story, but that's an example of understanding what you're shooting for, what your focus is, and then don't allow yourself to be deterred. That does not mean live life under rose-colored glasses. There's a part you play as well. My wife kept her body healthy. She prayed. She read a lot to understand what it would take. So she did her part, but she was uncompromising in her focus. And now we have a little boy named Stephen Andrew White II.
Well, yeah, I don't think he's a little boy anymore. He's
But does that make sense, Jim? So once you identify your purpose and what you're trying to do, that is what you're ruthless about. And there's some things that aren't that important. You can let those go because life is about compromise.
Well, okay. So you mentioned again, and you have a couple times talked about expectations, but in the book you talk about expectations can be your Bastille or your jail. So what do you mean by that?
Well, let it go. For example, when my mother and father got a divorce, like most kids, we think it's because of us. And so if I don't deal with that, I become a prisoner of that because I've said in my mind that I was the cause of my mother and father, divorcing. And think about the impact on future relationships and lack of trust issues and all of those things. So I had to really talk that out with my parents. And fortunately, we had the ability to have an open conversation. But if you don't talk about those things, if you don't deal with those things, they become a prisoner. I'll give you an example. One of the biggest mistakes that I made as a leader was in 1997. Our company was going through tremendous pressure. And we decided not to give merit increases, salary increases to our top 10% of our employees. They were our longest standing employees. They made the most. And so we said we could save a lot of money by not giving the top 10% a raise and therefore give everybody else a raise. At the time, I'm still trying to figure out my purpose. I'm going along, right? I think it's the right thing to do. And boy, it was the worst mistake we made because I remember an employee coming to me saying, look, Steve, you have 2 jobs. Number 1 is always respect your employees. And number 2, to make sure my W-2 goes up every year. That's your job, is to create an environment so I can care for my family. And so I violated both of those. I certainly didn't respect my employees, by not giving them a raise, number two. And then I certainly didn't respect their W-2 because it didn't grow, although inflation was growing, et cetera. And so what I did, that turned into fuel for me. So whenever in doubt, I side with frontline employees versus anyone else, because that's part of my purpose, is develop that table of prosperity for others. And so through mistakes like that, that's what fueled my purpose, but that challenged me to make sure that I was not a prisoner of that. I turned it into fuel. And that's so important. That's why, Jim, is so important to have people around you. I call them road dog relationships, people that see things for what they are, and they feel comfortable enough telling you, hey, Jim, you're on the wrong track. But again, let me give you some suggestions on how. So having people around you regularly, helping you figure that out, that path, because guess what? Life is not a straight line to success. This idea of navigating uncertainty becomes really, really critical. So that's what I mean is don't let these things bog you down, because they will. They will keep you as a prisoner and won't allow you to be the best you can be.
Well, I think now's a good time for us to kind of put into a package the 7 pathways, because you even just mentioned another one of them that you just introduced a second ago. So let's talk about 7 pathways to get to the top the right way. What are they? And again, top, you and I had this discussion before we started recording. I mean, there is a whole lot of need and value in somebody who grows horizontally within an organization, and maybe is that go-to person for X, Y, or Z, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, I think societally, we think that we have to move up vertically within an organization for that to be deemed a success. And I think that's a false representation that we're giving to our just to say, developing leaders. It's just not the right approach. So I'd like you to have some clarity around that, and then share with us, these 7 pathways that you see.
Well, everything starts with this whole notion. The 2 most important days in your life is the day you're born. The second is when you know why. And that is such a critical piece. Because, Jim, when I grew up in the housing projects of Indianapolis, and people say, Steve, how did you make it out? How were you successful in doing it? Because I had men and women helping me answer that question. That, Steve, you are special. There is a reason that you're on this earth. And let's explore that. That's the beauty of life, of it actually exploring that. And so fortunately, I had teachers and counselors and principals and parents and friends and relatives challenging me. Maybe they didn't ask the question that way, but the idea is that, Steve, you're unique in your own way. Find out why you've been placed on this earth. And as people say, well, how do you find it? Answer these 3 questions. What are you passionate about? Be honest with yourself. What are you good at? And number 3, would you actually do it for free if you have to? And trust me, you won't have to. But would you do it for free? Because then you'll never work a day in your life, because you actually look forward to doing it. So that's number 1. Identifying your why gives you meaning and direction. And Jim, it gives you now a framework of how you make decisions about your life. Number 2, focus on the real prize. There's so many distractions out there, but once you identify your purpose, it actually gives you a roadmap of how you live your life. And don't allow yourself to be distracted as we move along. And for example, while COVID was difficult, while the murder of George Floyd was horrific, while those are important moments, I was worried about this idea, all of these young kids not being able to go to school, not being able to be educated. Think about the impact on these kids for generations. It's going to be horrific. So focus on the real prize. Number 3, live life as a learning lab. And I love your comment, Jim. Success is never a straight line. It's always a crooked road. And most people, you say, well, how did you get here? And they will take you through a zigzag of their life. It's never straight up. So constantly live life as a learning lab. Every opportunity is a learning opportunity. There are no mistakes. If it didn't kill you, it's an opportunity to learn and reflect on that. Number 4, and I talked about this a little bit, Jim, I am chairman and CEO of Steve White Incorporated. Think and act like a business. Most businesses, they have a long-term strategic plan. Most businesses, they invest in their company. Most good businesses, they put money aside for a rainy day. They're not emotional. They tend to look at things in a very objective way. That's why when business goes south, they can make the difficult decisions to adjust their spending habits, etc. So how do you think and act like a business? And that will challenge you to invest in you Incorporated. It's a much different mindset when you say, I work for Comcast or I work for Steve White Incorporated. It certainly changes my mindset and my approach. Number 5, the only 2 things you can control, Jim, and you and I have talked about this, is attitude and effort. I can't make someone give me a job. I can't make someone like me. All I can do is control my attitude and effort. Do I approach every assignment with the greatest effort? And will I always maintain a positive attitude? That doesn't mean live life behind rose-colored glasses. But once it happens to you, how you respond. I'm sure you've heard this from your parents. It's not about what happens to you. It's how you respond, how you deal with that. And the last 2, and I'll go quick here, navigate uncertainty. And I love your point, Jim. The straight line to success is actually crooked. So if you think that you're going to go work here 2 years and move up and move up and move up in the same path, I very rarely see that. As a matter of fact, Jim, when I look for leaders, I look for that experience. Because if you show me somebody that's had one path, that's not a leader that's going to be flexible. That's not a leader that has learned through a lot of heartache and mistakes. Because think about it, if you're a leader that grew up one way and now you got COVID, you're dealing with that in front of you, that's a whole new game. And then finally commit to road dog relationship. Now, let me tell everybody what road dog is. Not that I'm telling people to fight, but a fight breaks out, a road dog jumps in, they don't ask questions, they ask questions after the fight. And what I mean by this is, do you have men and women around you that are truth tellers? They can challenge you while inspiring you and affirming your dreams, but do it in a way that helps you be better. And so when you can, it's not the number, but the quality of those relationships. So those are the 7 pathways, whether it's for business, whether it's for personal, it really does not matter. So let's play this out. Raising kids. You and your spouse have to sit down and have a legitimate conversation. How are we going to raise this child? What kind of schools? What kind of values? So you have to have purpose in how you're raising your child with intentionality. That's how I believe it happens. And so whether this is business or personal, I believe these 7 pathways can make a difference in your life.
Well, I go back to what I had mentioned earlier. Is I see us having to do the exact same thing with people within our organization who are in the workplace, whether it's frontline. And here's the truth. In reality, you have a lot of kids who assimilated through the educational system, even received some type of master's degree. They've never had any of this. And that's one of the actual knocks about MBA schools. Is they're producing these people with these degrees that are socially dysfunctional and unable to do this stuff. So it's like, okay, how, again, when I start thinking about making this difference, ultimately, we got to impact the customer experience. We talking about a business, and you talk about the partnership, and then we're trying to move a business forward. I start thinking about how does all of this and having an unwavering commitment to your why actually impact the customer experience?
Well, and it's important with your organization. Let's think about this. You had mentioned my job as president of Comcast West. I had over almost 30,000 employees. 80% of those employees are frontline, Jim. Now, think about this. We have technicians that are in customers' homes. We have customer agents that are talking to customers. There's no way that I can see and be part of every one of those interactions. There's just not possible. But when you have to make a decision as a frontline employee, when you're in that customer's home or you're talking to a customer and they're yelling at you, they're screaming at you like it's your fault because they had this issue, how do you deal with that? They have to have some kind of moral compass, some kind of North Star. How do I interact with this customer in a way that they feel affirmed, listened to, and I'm showing them a commitment that I'm going to work on their issue? So that's why having a very clear purpose and why we exist. So your employees understand the reason we exist, our customers are there. Now, I'm not saying you should be sit there and be berated. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying, look, let's find a way to resolve that customer's issue that's favorable to them, because that's why we exist. And if I can paint a picture and talk about our purpose, our North Star, our moral compass, when I'm not around, we now have a guiding light that moves us forward. So that's why I think it's so important. Certainly got to train your employees, but giving them that North Star. So when they're in that difficult situation, they can answer the question and they can take care of the customer as needed. And that's hard to do. That's why as a leader, you've got to make sure the men and women that you spend the most of your time with, they understand that clearly so they can pay it forward. There's an old quote, Jim, and maybe you've heard it. We are a composite of the 5 people we spend the most time with. And if I can create that in an organization as a frontline employee, the 5 people you're mostly around in the workplace share these values, the chances are you're going to share them as well.
Very, very, very good points. But I started looking at you writing this book. I started looking at, your background in the story and origin story. And I start, looking at what you say in the book in regards to, now your goal is just to try to bring, people to the table. And you talk about that. But I started thinking about, so what is one of your goals in all of this?
Is to make a difference, writing a book. And as you and I talked about, Jim, unless you're Stephen King or John Grisham, most authors are not getting rich doing this. They're doing it because they have a love affair with the subject matter and they want to share with others. I am sharing this book. One, it's going to be a great book. The most emotional moment through this whole thing was signing a book and giving it to my son and saying, Stevie, at the right time, you will read this, and this will hopefully give you some sense of my life and some ideas around how you should think about living your life. So just think about the impact that I'll have on him when he's of age and he can read the book and really understand all the principles. So the goal here is to live my purpose. And if I impact one person or 5,000 or 10,000, that's not the point. The point here is, will the book make a difference? By sharing my story, the successes and failures, will people benefit? And I think so. Based on the feedback that I've received, I truly believe people are being impacted. And so, Jim, when you gave me the opportunity to be part of this, I wanted to come on and spend time with you and your listeners. And my hope is someone will find a way to read this book. If not, just go to my website, stevewhitespeaks.com. There's a lot of information there. There are parts of the book that are listed there. So even if you don't want to buy it, there are pieces there on the website that I can believe can help you, or follow me on social media. But the point here is, it's never the size of the impact. It's the idea of is making an impact. A last story I'll share here. There have been studies done, Jim, that in our lifetime, we will interact with 80,000 different people. And so when our days are done, think about Denver football stadium. We call it Empower Field, although we haven't played a lot of football there lately because we've been so bad. But think about when your life is done, Jim, and you're going through the stadium. They're doing one of 3 things. They're saying, Jim, 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 very positive. Or they're booing, Jim, you're blankety blank. Or worse, Jim, they're saying nothing. And think about a life where there are no fingerprints. We can't tell if you even were here or not. So all I know is that when my time is up and we go through that stadium, whether it's 80,000 people, 40,000, 10,000, 5,000, whatever the number is, that they're saying, wow, he made an impact. Maybe it was a word, maybe it was a quote, maybe it was a video they saw. He made a difference. And boy, who can say that's not a life well lived?
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Steve.
I love that.
The Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Steve White, are you ready to hoe down?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. So what is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Fear of failure.
Oh, go ahead.
Fear of failure. If I could do anything and knew I had no chance of failing, there will be other things that we do. So even for confident leaders, we have those moments of doubt. And if you could strip that away, boy, what could you accomplish if you don't worry about failure?
And what is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Pick and select your friends very carefully, because as we said before, you're a composite of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So be selective in who you put in your circle.
And what would be one tool that you feel helps you lead in business or life?
Reading. We talked about reading. Find subjects that you're not very good at. Find good books to read, or good articles, or good websites, or TED Talks, or whatever it might be. Always find a way to learn and grow. And I find reading is one of those fundamentals that it's a gift that just keeps on giving.
Well, and in that vein, what would be one book you'd recommend to our Legion? And it could be from any genre.
Uncompromising. No, I'm just kidding. Jack Welch was one of my heroes. Following him, he wrote a book called Winning from the Gut. Gut is probably about 20 years old. But it was a book that really inspired me in a way. While he was a tough leader, he was compassionate and he had a big heart that people didn't always see. But it was a book that really, really, really resonated with me.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find that and links to other bonus material by going to fastleader.net and doing a search for Steve White. Okay, Steve, this is my last Hump Day Hold On question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25 and take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only take one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Relax. It's not that serious. When we're younger, everything's the end of the world if it does not go perfectly right. Relax. Life is going to be about successes and failures. So relax. Take it as an opportunity to learn, and you can enjoy life more. I tended to live life looking forward too much and not always enjoying the moment. We're only here for a small period of time. Find a way to enjoy the moment, and that allows the journey to become even more enjoyable.
Now, you had already shared it once, but usually I prompt here, so I'll go ahead and make you that offer again. How does the Fast Leader Legion get in contact with you?
Well, they can go to my website, stevewhitespeaks.com. You'll find everything you need to know about me, the book, my social media postings, etc. You can go to social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So that's where you start. Go to stevewhitespeaks.com. It'll give you all the direction you need as you move forward.
Steve White, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and helping us all get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.